This is Mark Slower Lower RC, and I am finally building my comp crawler built with a scx24 platform. I went ahead and did one of the axles. This thing's going to have rear steer, so both axles are the same. So I went ahead and put this together yesterday. Had some issues with it, which we'll get into as I'm assembling this one. But first of all, these are the parts I used. You can use whatever you want, doesn't matter. But I started off with these Injora aluminum axles and aftermarket steel gears. The front has the overdrive gears. I don't know if you can get that, if you need that part number. So I got overdrive in the front, which I've already assembled that. The back's just hardened steel gears. Fast eddy bearings. Hobby Park knuckles. Turnbuckles, whatever you want to call them. Brass. Trio steering links. These are really good. And Injora kit that has the servo mount and horn, aluminum horn. Alright, so I'm gonna, well, the shafts too. We'll get to these too. Stainless steel shafts. Alright, I'm gonna unpack all this stuff and start putting this thing together. Alright, so I got everything laid out, and what I like to do is get all my parts laid out, get all my screws that go to everything. Got my screws for that. Got my little O-rings, got my screws here. Normally this would take like 10 minutes. This other axle, I had some issues. Hopefully this one will go together a little bit smoother. So to get started, we got an empty aluminum axle housing. First thing I like to do is get the bearing way down in there where you see that opening. Just pop that bearing down in there and just take a tool and kind of push it in there. It should slide right in. Okay. I don't know if you can barely see it because of the light, but anyway, that one's in. And we got two more. One that goes there, one that goes right there. Very simple stuff. Sometimes I like to put this gear in, put the one bearing in, put the gear in the middle, then pop the other one in. Just like that. And next we can go ahead and stick, I'm not going to put the worm gear in yet, I'm going to wait on that because I want to grease that when I put it in. I don't want to get grease everywhere, so we're going to go ahead and do the axles next. Alright, so next, take this axle, take another bearing, slide it on the shaft, just like that. Push it through. And there's a notch on the inside of this gear. Just put a little bit of pressure on it as you're pushing it and just turn that real slow and it will pop right in, just like that one did. And we're going to go ahead and put this knuckle on. Make sure you put these on the right way. So you want the diff case facing forward, out, and the output on the back. So you want the turn stub on the front. And gotta be careful with these because they're a little off angle. See, if I use this one, if you look there, that axle is going to be pointing up in the air. It's kind of hard for you to see, but just make sure when you put these on, you put them on correctly so that the axle is sticking out straight out the side. You'll see what I mean in a minute. It's kind of hard to show you, but this piece here gets 2 bearings. Get one on the inside there, one on the outside. Outside one's probably going to pop off a million times, but anyway. And then take your CVD cup, push that through like so. And then you line this up. These things are a little fidgety, but you'll get it. Okay, so I got it all lined up. Then they got these little, see that big hole right there? You got these little brass rings. Don't drop them because you'll lose them forever. Little teeny things. Pop that in there like that. Take one of your little screws. Oh, there goes a bearing. And just snug. Just get it in there and get it started, really. Don't tighten it. And then do the same to the bottom. Put your little ring in there. Put your screw in. And just snug them for now. Alright, that's one side done. And it is rubbing a little bit like the other axle. We'll get to that in a second. Alright, so let's put this bearing back in. Get our other shaft. Put the bearing on it. Slide that in. Oh, that one popped right in. Get our 2 bearings and our turnbuckle, knuckle, whatever you want to call it. Put your shaft through. Get everything lined up. Put your little sleeve in there. And a screw. Same on the bottom. And see, this goes by pretty quick in a perfect world, but it's not perfect, trust me. That one, see, that one moves good. This one, it's not bad. See, I had an issue with the other axle. That was rubbing. I had to shave down the axle and shave down the knuckle a little bit. This one's got more clearance. Barely touching in there. But we'll see what it's like after I tighten everything up. Might have to shave that one down a little bit. But not bad. It's better than the other axle was. Okay. So now we're going to do the worm gear. And I waited on this because I got to grease it up and that gets messy. So you got these little teeny O-rings. You need something like this. And actually, I'm going to pause this for a second and I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Dog was barking. Thought somebody was here. So this little teeny O-ring, you see I just almost lost that one. Kind of a pain in the butt. But you got to take this little teeny O-ring and put it on this shaft of that worm gear right there. And just kind of use your fingernail and this little pick and slide it over. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Don't lose that little ring because you're going to need it. Helps so there ain't no slop in there. And they're a pain in the butt to get on. There it goes. And then just push it all the way down. And then do the same on the other side. Alright, so after struggling for a minute, I got it. Alright, so now you need to get your grease out. Now I use this stuff right here, Molly grease. I'm sure guys use different things, use whatever the hell you want. This is what I use. So, use your own grease. Let me just put it that way. So you want to put the output where the drive shaft connects, going through, going out. So I like to put a little bit of grease on the back side where it's kind of hard to get down in there. Spread a little grease on there. Pop your worm gear in. Goes right in. And I'm going to take a little drive shaft and just pop it on here to help me turn this thing to get this grease spread. And just put a little bit of grease on the teeth here. And give her a little spin. Add some more. You don't want to pack this thing with grease, just make sure everything's coated real good. You can always pop the diff cover off and re-grease it in the future. This Molly grease is really good. Make sure everything's coated. See, that's not bad. Alright. Now you want to take your diff cover, put your bearing, pop your bearing in the diff cover, put your diff cover on, and do your 4 small screws. Don't tighten them right away, just get them in there and we'll go back and snug them. These axles, as long as everything goes together correctly, they're very, very simple. But I went a little cheap and bought Injora, which is like a medium grade. It's not the cheapest, it's not the best. Sometimes you gotta do a little shaving down, make stuff fit. Okay, so now you got all 4 of them in. Just go back and snug these down. Don't super tighten them, because if you break off one of these screws, you're screwed. And these are little screws. They break. I've done it. Okay. So everything's together. Very smooth running. So go ahead and get our servo plate on. And this is where I ran into an issue on the other one, is I had to shave down the inside here where it goes against the axle, and I had to shave down on the axle. Sometimes that paint can get a little too thick and it messes things up, but that goes on like that. That's where your rear either wishbone or links go on. Take your 2 longer screws and let's see if these go in. That's what I had an issue with yesterday. Nope, gonna have an issue. See how that's going in there like that? See how crooked that is? I don't know if you can tell. That's not straight. Don't force it. If that happens to you, do not force it. Okay, so I'm gonna have to get the Dremel out. So I'm not gonna film that because it takes a minute, but I'll be back in a minute after I get this shaved down and show you what I had to do. Alright, so after about 20 minutes, that's what it looks like. This is a brand new axle, brand new mount. They're both made by Injora, which kind of pissed me off a little bit that I'm having to do this, but if you're going to use it, this is what could happen to you. Is I'd take my Dremel and shave all this down and shave that down on the plate just to get it to line up so that these screws go in straight. Right through there, you can kind of see the holes. But if you go to put this plate on and these top screws aren't going in straight, then you're going to have to do this. If not, you're going to break one off and it's going to piss you off. If you're using a plastic mount, you probably won't have this issue because it'll bend. But if you're going to try to use an aluminum mount, expect this to happen. Alright, so I'm going to get these screws in and then we'll move on. Alright, so I finally got all the screws in. It's straight. BS, but I got it. Can't really tell too much. I could always touch up the paint. I'm not too worried about it. Alright, so earlier I was talking about these stainless steel axle shafts that go in these housings. And they're like $15 Amazon stainless steel shafts. But the issue I had with the other one, same issue I'm having with these. Well, these CVD cups where the dog bone goes in is not milled deep enough. And what ends up happening is if when you're at full steering, if I can get it focused, see that? It's binding. Should not be doing that. It's not very smooth. And when you're trying to drive and you're turned, it's going to bind up on you. So what I had to do on the other one, it pretty much fixed the problem. Let me take this off real quick. Is I had to take my Dremel and cut it out a little bit. Get off there. See the issue. Get it to focus. As these are not deep enough right here in the sides where the dog bone, the pin from the dog bone goes through. These are not deep enough. But if you notice, my Dremel blade fits in there perfectly. So I'm gonna drill them down just a hair to give that a little bit more clearance. So I'm gonna do that real quick. I just wanted to show you real quick while I had these apart that these axle shafts I bought off of Amazon for like 15 bucks, like I said. And these little pins just popped right out. They weren't even held in there. I put some red Loctite on it, put them, centered them, left them overnight. They seem to be in there. I might have to put them in the press and squeeze the hell out of them. But as soon as Nick gets some more in at Mofo, I'm gonna order them. But temporarily, I'm just gonna install these. They're not hard to change. But just thought I'd mention that real quick. Alright, so one thing left real quick, then we'll have these axles assembled, is this front link. Now these are the Trio. Everything I've ever bought from Trio has been good. They're expensive for a reason. You gotta pay for quality. When you see something too cheap, it's cheap for a reason. So just keep that in mind when you go buying parts. Most of the time you can get them to work, but you gotta finagle them a little bit. Anything Trio, Hot Racing, Mofo, I'm sure there's other good companies out there, but when you see that cheap Amazon and eBay crap, that's what it is, it's crap. So the link goes on very quickly. Just goes right on top of the knuckle there. One screw. When I get all this back together, I'm going to be putting blue Loctite on all these screws that do a lot of turning, because these will fall out because that's metal into metal. But for now, I'm just test fitting it. And where I shave these cups down, now it's not as bad, but still doing it. Shouldn't be doing it, but it's better than it was. I'm going to be replacing those axles as soon as I can get some. But anyway, here's my two axles. They're all together. I'll be making next video. We will be assembling the chassis. Alright, thanks for watching.